Generally, property owners must bring an ejection action against persons adversely possessing their property within a specific number of years to avoid losing ownership of the property by adverse possession. However, persons under a disability, such as infancy, typically are exempted from the statutory limitations period until their disability no longer exists. But what if an owner's heir who has a disability acquires the property after the limitations period has started? The New York Supreme Court considered this question in Fleming v. Griswold. In 1795, Peter Tallman acquired title to real property in New York, but Tallman never took possession of the property. 10 years later, a third party purported to convey title to Tallman's property to Edward Griswold by warranty deed. Because the third party didn't own the property, he couldn't convey good title. Nevertheless, believing that he acquired good title, Edward took possession of the property and asserted an ownership interest that was adverse to Tallman's ownership interest. At the time, Tallman's daughter was a minor and the heir to Tallman's ownership interest. 2 years later, Tallman's daughter married J.B. Fleming when she was under the age of 21. As a result, under the antiquated legal doctrine of coverture, Tallman's daughter's rights and obligations were subsumed by her husband, Mr. Fleming, by marriage. In 1811, Edward conveyed his interest in the property to Abraham Griswold. 4 years later, Tallman died, and his ownership interest went to his daughter, Mrs. Fleming. At the time of Tallman's death, New York statute provided that the statutory limitations period for filing an ejectment action was 25 years. In 1840, Mr. and Mrs. Fleming filed an ejectment action in State Circuit Court against Abraham. In response, Abraham counterclaimed for adverse possession. Following trial, the judge instructed the jury that Abraham was entitled to a verdict on his adverse possession claim. Specifically, the court found that the statutory limitations period for filing an ejectment action began to run when Edward took possession of the property and didn't stop running when Mrs. Fleming acquired the property due to her disability to sue or be sued. Moreover, Abraham had shown that he adversely possessed the property for more than 25 years, regardless of Mrs. Fleming's disabilities due to infancy and coverture. Based on the court's instructions, the jury found in favor of Abraham. The Flemings appealed to the New York Supreme Court and moved for a new trial.